Oh, do 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 do. Right, just waiting on Rockfin. Let's go. All right, and Rockfin is live. Yay! Whoop whoop. Whoop whoop.
Doobie doobie doo. Doobie doobie doo. Doobie doobie doo. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. Doobie doobie doo. Doobie doobie doo. Doobie doobie doo. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. Doobie doobie doo. Doobie doobie doo. Doobie doobie doo. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati.
Doobie doobie doo. Hello, welcome. Happy Monday, guys. I hope everyone had a great weekend and welcome to Sab's podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you are new, I want to let you know that Sab's podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Roundtable and Friday for the Sabby Show. And you can find me here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. I want to give a quick shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Twitter, and Rockfin. Welcome all. I have a lot to cover tonight. There's a lot of news over the weekend, and I tried to squeeze as much as I could in for tonight's show. I want to give shout outs to people in the chat, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Shout out to Notori, says yes. Shout out to Stacy LA's Laughing Buddha. Somebody let Peppermint Patty know white supremacists have already infiltrated law enforcement. Adding more police is the opposite of what's needed. By the way, this terrorist was already on the police radar. I can't see what the emoji is, but I get the point. Welcome. Shout out to Miguel, says peace. What's going on? Little Rock Elevator says, hey, Sabby. It was also about to be a church shooting in Buffalo yesterday during service. The name of the church is True Bethel Baptist Church. Oh, wow. I didn't realize that. Thank you for letting me know. Shout out to Hannah G, says Monday with Sabby. Greetings, Eric Gray says, hey, Sabby. And yeah, Jordan's stream was especially irritating today. I only caught a little bit at the end. Shout out to LPA Film, who's a Sabby member, says, let's go. Shout out to Georgia Freckles, also a Sabby member, says, hey, girl. Hey, y'all. What's going on? Angela says, hello, everyone. Always good to be here. Shout out to Kenshi, says, happy Monday, my dear. Happy Monday to you too. Greetings to Lawrence, who's a Sabby member, says, doobie doobie doo. Shout out to Rebel, says, I'm all ready for the Sabby revolution. Whoop, whoop. Shout out to D-Bo, the Black Panther. Hello, Sabby Sab. Love the show. Discovered you on Jimmy Dore. Thank you and welcome. A lot of new faces. Shout out to John Kemper, says, evening, Sabby. What's going on? Brent Hudgens said this episode ought to have some fire. After that, Mayor will encounter. Yes, if you guys haven't seen that, definitely check out the episode that I posted earlier today called Mayor Michelle Wu Confronted. Sabby was on the ground. And shout out to Pastor John also for letting me know about that event. And yes, I'm glad I did get to ask her questions about affordable housing. I don't really buy what she said, though, but I'm going to hold her to that amount that she told us. We'll see. I've been through 3 mayors. They all said they were going to add more affordable housing, and all they did was add more luxury condos. So we'll see. Shout out to JB, RB and Comrade there. Hi, Sabby and all you lovely people. Yabba dabba doo. Oh, boy. Shout out to Yipper99 says, hi, Sabby. YouTube played Fox Nation TV show promo ad before your stream started. Oh, yikes. Yikes. Sabby don't like it. Sabby don't like it. Shout out to Andrew Matthews for the super chat. I have some wisdom I would like to give everyone. These are 2 words to live by. They get me through the worst life throws at me. Those 2 words are what? Oh, you're not going to tell me. All right. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started. Shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your support. If you want to be a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories: members, Sabbies, Sabsters, Sabinators, and the ultimate, of course. All of their names are listed here. And I want to give a special shout out to new patrons, Artemis and Kevin K. Thank you guys so much. It really does help. And you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen. What are we talking about tonight, ladies and gentlemen? Let's go ahead and get into it. So, lots to discuss. Tonight, I'm talking about Jen Psaki out of touch. Yikes. What did Jen Psaki say and why is it problematic? I'm also going to discuss Joe Biden pushes cops. What is Joe trying to say now? What is he trying to get the states to do? Also going to discuss the Buffalo shooter. I'm sure you guys have heard a lot about that. I have some things to say, and I think the message I'm going to deliver tonight, I want you to know, I want us to pay more attention to the victims and not so much on the shooter. I am going to talk about the shooter, but I have a different message to go along with this. And of course, also Starbucks union joined. So I will have someone on. They'll be here at 7:30. A new union effort for Starbucks employees. I'm excited to talk to them. Let's do the damn thing. All right. So I'm going to get started with Jen Psaki. Now, this was rather cringe. Rather cringe. You guys know I talk about class a lot on this show, and there seems to be some people in DC who have zero class consciousness, either zero class consciousness or they do know, but they're pretending not to know. So I want to show you this comment made by Jen Psaki. Oh, Eric, did you add Tight VNC to the studio? Because I can't put it up on the screen. Give me just a second. Because I have it, but it's not. Uh-oh. Let's see. Let me get out of here. I don't understand what just happened. Give me just a second, guys. I'm going to have to go back in. A second. Oh, it's gone. I don't know what happened. All right, I'll have to come back to that. I'll just go ahead and share my screen. All right, so as you guys know, or as you may know, Jen Psaki has made some comments recently about the baby formula shortage, which is a problem, right? So people are asking her questions about this, like, what should people do? What should the American people do if they're struggling to find baby formula? Let me show you the comment that Jen Psaki made. So here we go. Oh, you have it here. Okay. All right. Move this over. Oh. It's over here. All right. So again, someone in the audience, this is one of the reporters at the White House, asking her, what should the American people do in reference to the baby formula shortage? Wait until you hear this.
Since you said it was a public health question, which agency should that question be directed to? Just the very practical, immediate question of if you can't find formula and you need it for your baby to eat, What should they be doing?
We would certainly encourage any parent who has concerns about their child's health or well-being to call their doctor or pediatrician.
What? Let's hear that again, ladies and gentlemen.
Since you said it was a public health question, which agency should that question be directed to? Just the very practical, immediate question of if you can't find formula and you need it for your baby to eat.
So the question that they asked her was, which agency should this be directed to? Parents who are looking for baby formula and are not able to find it. This is her response.
What should they be doing?
We would certainly encourage any parent who has concerns about their child's health or well-being to call their doctor or pediatrician.
Since you said it was a public health question.
She encourages parents to call their doctor or pediatrician. Now, some people didn't see a problem with this. Again, I'm looking at this from a class conscious issue. The problem with Jen Psaki's statement that parents should call their doctor or their pediatrician, she is assuming that everyone has a primary care provider. She's assuming that everyone has a pediatrician. She's assuming that people have health insurance to go to the doctor, to go to the pediatrician. I don't know about you guys, but if I call my doctor, first of all, I can never get my doctor on the phone. Maybe this is some kind of benefit that Jen Psaki has that the rest of us don't have, maybe because she works for the federal government. I can never get my doctor on the phone. If I call my doctor's office, what are they going to do? They tell me I need to schedule an appointment. Whether it's a virtual appointment or whether I have to go on site, either way, they're going to schedule an appointment, which means I still would have to pay a copay. Now, I have health insurance. It's not great health insurance. But what about people that don't have health insurance? If they go to the doctor, they have to pay full price. The last time I went to the doctor when I didn't have health insurance was a couple of years ago. That was $200. That was just for the visit, by the way. For 15 minutes, $200. This isn't the first time that Jen Psaki has made a class-conscious comment where she's really not thinking outside of her circle, her class. Last year, she made a comment saying people who are frustrated about the economy, that they should go take a kickboxing class and they should have a margarita. If you are frustrated about the economy, obviously, you probably don't have money to go take a kickboxing class or to go have margaritas. She can. She does. Because that's what people in her class can afford to do. Look at how she says it. Watch this one more time, so casually, like it's no big deal.
Which agency should that question be directed to? Just the very practical, immediate question of if you can't find formula and you need it for your baby to eat, what should they be doing?
We would certainly encourage any parent who has concerns about their child's health or well-being to call their doctor or pediatrician.
Very casually, and then moves on to the next question. Doesn't stop to think once about the people who don't have doctors, who don't have a pediatrician. Who are those people? I want to show you something. This is coming from the CDC. Take a look at this. Here we go. Make this a little bit larger for those of you in the back. CDC reports on uninsured in first 6 months of 2021. Now, this is last year. It hasn't improved. Let's see what the CDC said about people who are uninsured in this country. An estimated 9.6% of U.S. residents, or 31.1 million people, lacked health insurance when surveyed in the first 6 months of 2021. That's during a pandemic, by the way. Let's say that again. An estimated 9.6% of US residents. Now, you'll see 9.6% and you'll think, oh, that's not that large of a number. But when they actually tell you the number, then you realize that's actually a lot of people. 31.1 million people lacked health insurance when surveyed in the first 6 months of 2021. That's coming from the National Health Institute survey. That's not significantly different from the survey's uninsured rate for 2020. Again, it hasn't improved. Who are they? Let's see. Among children, 4.4% were uninsured. 44.7% had public coverage, and 53.1% had private coverage. Among adults under the age of 65, and they say this because people who are 65 and older qualify for Medicare. Under the age of 65, Hispanic adults, 31.4% were more likely than Black, 14.7%, White, 9.0%, Asian, 6.1% adults to be uninsured. The majority of people under the age of 65 who are uninsured in this country are Hispanic adults. Black Americans are second. You guys see this? You see the disparities? White Americans, 9%. Asian Americans, 6.1%. So, if we look at these numbers, Hispanic adults, 31.4%, Black, 14.7%. Who is less likely to go to the doctor? People who are uninsured are less likely to go to the doctor because they have to pay full price. So Black people and Hispanics or Latinos are less likely to go to the doctor. So Jen Psaki's comment, contact your doctor, contact your pediatrician. She's not talking to people like me. She's not talking to people who are Latino in this country. She's talking to people like her. I want to show you something else. The percentage of people under age 65 with exchange-based coverage increased from 3.7% in 2019 to 4.3% in the first 6 months of 2020. So people who are under the age of 65 with exchange-based coverage. Again, this information is coming from the CDC. Let's look at who has a primary doctor in this country. This is another very telling one. Declining numbers of Americans have a primary care provider. It's declining. In a little over a decade, the number of patients in the US with primary care providers dropped by 2%. Between 2002 and 2015, fewer and fewer Americans of all ages, except for those in their 80s, again, had a primary care provider. Now, why would people in their 80s be more likely to have a primary care provider? Because they're probably on Medicare. So if we had Medicare for all, for everybody in this country, all of us would most likely have a primary care provider. This is insurance based. Let's go back in. While 2% may not seem like a big drop off, that's millions and millions of people who no longer have a primary care provider. This is coming from right here in Massachusetts. That's coming from Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston. They also have a lot of strikes, by the way. Their nurses go on strike at least like every other year. I'm not kidding. It's essentially about the population of New Jersey. That's a lot of people. It's particularly stark decrease among younger folks, particularly those who are healthy. Adding that the decline was also dramatic at nearly 10% among those who were in their 60s and healthy. The study team found overall the proportion of U.S. adults with a primary care physician fell from 77% in 2002 to 75% in 2015. Among 30-year-olds, the proportion dropped from 71% to 64% in the same period. So we are looking at the millennial population. That's not surprising to me. I'm a millennial. Yes, we're more likely to not have a primary care provider. This is why Jen Psaki's statement is incredibly troubling, because she doesn't make the connection. Don't you think that if people had a doctor or a physician that they could just pick up the phone and call and they didn't have to go in person and have an appointment and pay a copay or pay full price? Don't you think they would have done that already, Jen? Let's go back in. People with 3 or more chronic health conditions were an exception, and the proportion with a primary care doctor remained relatively stable. Now, those are people who have chronic health conditions. That makes sense. This is what the doctor says. I tell my 20 to 30-year-old patients, I don't need to see you until you need to see me. It makes a difference having a relationship with the physician, even if you've met only once. Then the physician has some history on you and maybe some baseline labs. Look, I'm one of those people that I'm serious about getting a physical every year. That's something that I don't budge on. But I did a panel in February for the Women's Summit. I did a women's health panel. And some of the statistics that we talked about on that panel is very concerning. The number of women that are not getting physicals every year, and I'm talking, these are life-saving preventative visits. It's concerning. But the reason why they're not getting them? Money. Don't have health insurance. Since they don't have health insurance, they may not have a primary care provider, or they're underinsured. People can't afford it. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Preventative treatment should always be free. We talk about Medicare for all, but nobody should have to pay to get a mammogram. That's preventative care. No one should have to pay to get a skin test. And if you're not doing that, whether you're black or white, when you go to your doctor and you have your physicals, you should request a skin check. What is that? That's when they look over your skin to make sure you have no, moles that are, I guess you would say, unusual, that there are no spots on your skin that could be concerning, that could be precancerous. That should be free. Why do you have to pay to get preventative care? At that point, they're not treating you. They're not giving you treatment. Life-saving preventative care. If you haven't had a chance to see that panel, I highly recommend that you go watch it. Eleanor Goldfield's on it, Savage Joy, Marianne Williamson, Kim Iverson's on that panel. Jimmy from KRTD Media is on that panel. I think you might be surprised at some of the stories that you hear. But at the end of the day, it all comes back to money. That's why people aren't getting these things done. I'm going to go to some of the comments. Thank you for the super chat, Andrew. Those 2 words are, I'm Batman. Oh, I love it. Thank you for the super chat as well. That's like me telling my Calculus 1 students to use integration by parts. Integration by parts is Calculus 2. Right? Thank you for the super chat as well, Andrew. Psaki knows she doesn't care. Push blame away. Franny, call your bartender, your doctor, your kickboxing coach, and then you're good to go. Right? Bill Bradley says doctors have access specialized formula in small amounts needed by infants with specific dietary needs. They don't just have a stock of baby formula anyway. The answer was garbage on all levels. I hear you. I hear you. Gamer and Ganja for Life said universal health care is needed. JB's in the house says you even need to pay premiums for Medicare. Just FYI. You guys hear that? Thank you for the super chat, Troy. This is from @Rebel. Another dim called Rand Paul a Russian asset for criticizing weapons industry welfare and no baby food. That's a good point. Rebel, Psaki is a robot that is pre-recorded. Oh dear. Oh dear. But you guys see my point? This is why I talk about the class issue a lot on this channel. Because you have people like Jen Psaki, they have no class consciousness. They don't think about the fact that some of the things that they're able to do is strictly because of the class that they're in. And that people who are in a class beneath that, and we do have class systems in this country, people that are in a class system beneath that can't do the things that they can do because they don't have the means to do so. They don't have the resources. They don't have the money. They don't know the right people. Sometimes that's a factor. But if everybody could just pick up the phone and call their doctor, what would we be looking towards you for? I talked about this Friday night on Call-In, the fact that we've sent $40 billion to Ukraine. And we have a baby food shortage in this country. And it's not just baby food, it's food, period. Go to the supermarket. Tell me what you see. The fact that we have that in this country, but we have $40 billion to give to someone else, that says a lot about our government and who they really care about. Because if they really cared about us, we wouldn't be in this situation. And I pointed this out on Twitter as well. People who are rich, people who are wealthy, they're going to be fine. Do you think Bill Gates, do you think Mark Cuban, do you think Mark Zuckerberg, you think they're going to have a difficult time finding baby formula? They'll get it some way or another. If they don't get it in this country, they can get it from another country. They're connected. They know a lot of people. That's how it works. That's why I talk about the class issue a lot. Because the more people start to see that and stop focusing so much on left versus right, then you'll realize who the real enemy is. Case in point. I see Joe is here. So I'm going to go ahead and let him hop on.
Hey.
Hello. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It looks nice and sunny where you are, Joe.
Yeah, I'm right next to the beach too, right near California, so it's great.
Oh my gosh. All right, guys. Joe Thompson's here. He is one of the Starbucks employees doing union efforts. And I believe your store just unionized in California. So, Joe, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and how this all got started?
Yeah, so I'm 19 years old. My store became the first store along with the Mission to Forest store in California, to unionize. And we filed back in January. We were the first store in California to file and the first to unionize. Now we have a total of 4 stores throughout all of California that have unionized. And what it really came down to was me and my coworkers really decided that, enough is enough. We want, safe, better, and fair working conditions for everyone, all of our baristas. And obviously Starbucks being a multi-billion-dollar company, they can definitely afford to do that. They can afford to, be better for their workers.
What were some of the issues that you were having to deal with at your location?
Well, there's a lot of safety issues, and when it really came down to it, a lot of the baristas did not feel safe coming into work. They were having lots of trouble, and when it came down to it, there was a lot of scheduling problems. Our store manager was very, not well liked, and baristas just weren't making a living. They're not being paid a living wage in California. They're dealing with housing insecurity. Starbucks cut our food benefits. It was a lot of different issues that kind of culminated together throughout the pandemic.
Now, when you say they cut your food benefits, what do you mean, like food that you could purchase at Starbucks?
Yeah, so during the start of the pandemic, they allowed for baristas to get 1 free food and 1 free drink any day, no matter if they're working or not. Now it's only if you're working you can get a free food and drink. And it just, it really cuts down on the baristas, ability to get food, and can create situations where baristas have to choose, if they're going to spend money on this or that, when Starbucks could just allow baristas to get 1 free food and 1 free drink any day, which they did during the pandemic.
Wow, that's interesting. Now, how did you go about unionizing like your location? Like, was this something that you guys had talked about collectively before, or did you just kind of have at it?
Yeah, we did. We definitely more had at it. We had a few of the very early meetings. One of the things that Bernie Sanders did was on like December 6th, he did like a town hall that was live streamed. So like me and a lot of the baristas came and watched that. And we kind of decided, like, this is something we want to do. And we were watching what happened in Buffalo, and we finally realized that we could do it. And, a lot of the baristas here are just college students like myself. And nobody ever thought, a bunch of college students could up and unionize a Starbucks ever. And we proved that we could. And now we see, workers across the country rising up and saying that, this is our time. If you do not treat us with respect and you not pay us a living wage, we're going to fight it, you for it.
Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of like the younger, like you remind me, you like one of my students, Joe. Like my students were like your age group. So it's refreshing to see like young people really like standing up for labor and really realizing like the rights that you really deserve and that you should have. And I'm assuming since you guys, a lot of you were college students, you were probably part-time at Starbucks.
Yeah, almost all part-time.
Yeah. So what I want to tell people is that just because you're part-time, because this is something I've heard from a lot of people, part-time employees deserve benefits too. Part-time employees also should be able to form a union. You shouldn't have to just be full-time or work a certain number of hours a week in order to be able to have like the rights that you deserve as an employee. Because I can know, like, I didn't tell you this, Joe, but I worked at Starbucks many, many, many years ago when I was in college too. It's
Wow.
like a big like college kind of like job, but I worked there too. And they used to do this thing where those of us that would close on Friday night, for whatever reason, they would have us open on Saturday morning. And it's just like you didn't get that much sleep. Like you have to clean and close the store. And by the time you drive home, finally like wind down, eat dinner if you can. And next thing you know, you have a couple hours to lay down your head and then you have to get back up and do the same thing all over again.
Yep.
So you're
it's awful.
familiar with that.
And like I'm also running for state assembly, and during that campaign it was during finals week is when I had to file paperwork. So I was doing finals, trying to gather signatures, all this kind of stuff. And even now, like yesterday I just finished a research paper, and it's one of those things where it's like students we're not only are dealing with these issues and trying to make the world a better place, but it's like everything's trying to hold us back down.
Now, your store manager, I don't know how much of this you can discuss on here, but Your store manager, when they found out that you guys were trying to unionize, did you get any pushback from the store manager?
So yeah, they actually like fired our store manager, and which is totally legal. I mean, technically, what the company says is that he did not return to work or whatever it was, but he was fired because we exposed him for wage theft and harassment and a few other things in our public union efforts. And we actually got a new store manager, and that was one of the things that the union fought for, was to get a new store manager. And even when we got our new store manager, of course, they came in and tried union busting. But because they're such an outside force and didn't know a lot of the partners kind of knew that this was just Starbucks doing what it's supposed to do, and really trying to hammer down the fact that they didn't want a union because it's going to come in between the direct relationship that you have with your store manager. But a lot of the baristas know that a union's better for them overall, and we'll continue fighting for them long past what Starbucks says.
So what were some of the things that you were asking for as part of the union?
A lot of it came down to better wages, better scheduling. One of the things specifically that our store is fighting for is a security guard. We've had a lot of safety issues at our store, and Starbucks has refused to provide a security guard. And that's happened to a lot of stores in Arizona and Buffalo. A lot of these stores are dealing with security issues, and Starbucks is refusing to hire a security guard, which forces the baristas to have to use, like 911 and police, when a lot of them feel uncomfortable calling the cops. And it's like, we want an alternate form of policing, but Starbucks won't allow it. And we finally, after I closed the store down multiple times, we finally got approved to have a security guard, but it was only temporary. And, the union's really going to be fighting for that to make sure all of our baristas feel safe no matter what.
So basically, Starbucks just didn't want to pay for one, basically.
Yep.
And they have the money to do so. So I'm sure you're familiar with the fact that Howard Schultz has basically been brought back in as interim CEO to stop the unions from forming, but it doesn't seem to be working, which is good. But yeah, that was really interesting to me, because I knew that he talked about running for president for 2020. And I look back on that now and I just think to myself, like, oh my God, this guy was crazy. Like, he doesn't want people to form unions, and like, he really wanted to run for president and try to like talk about labor. It was bizarre to me.
Well, I recently heard that he was supposedly going to be Hillary Clinton's Secretary of Labor. And to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, can you imagine that? And now it's obvious. Thank goodness we don't have that. But it's because these billionaires are so out of touch. They have no idea what it's like to, for example, like myself. During high school, I worked 2 jobs. I worked at Starbucks and a local pizza shop just to make ends meet. And I was, of course, still in high school. I was still doing debate for my local high school team, and still, we don't have the support that's needed to make sure students have don't have to choose between their jobs and living compared to like extracurriculars. And it really does hurt students and people overall when we don't have safety net set up to protect workers.
Yeah, I have to add to that. First of all, I love that you were on the debate team. I was on the debate team too in high school. But for those of us that work like part-time jobs, like in high school, obviously most of the time we were working at night unless you had to come in on the weekend, right? That was another concern that we had as well. Like, you would leave late at night because like, just because you're in high school, that doesn't mean they let you leave early. You still have to close just like everybody else. So sometimes we would close over the weekend, like 11 o'clock at night. There was no security present. And you're asking these teenagers to close these stores. And then it's like, okay, have fun with your safety there. Just be aware of your surroundings. There was no security. And they can afford it. A lot of these companies, they make a lot of money. They pay for all this other stuff. But when it comes to your safety, it's like they just don't want to give into that for whatever reason.
Yeah, no, exactly. And, while working those 2 jobs in high school, I would go immediately after school to work a full either 4 or 5 hour shift, go home, do homework, wake up and go to school at 7 a.m. It was a cycle, and then on weekends I would work over at least 12 hours a day on weekends. And it's like, to me, no child in America should have to do that during school when they're just trying to get an education. And still during college, it's the same thing. And what we really need to do is to make sure kids in America have access to high quality education and a decent living, so we can start really building up the infrastructure for the next generation.
Now, is Starbucks still allowing employees tuition remission? Is that still part of the benefits?
They do online through ASU, but even still, they're like, my sister did it, and she still had to pay out of pocket for some costs. So one of the things we're fighting for with the union effort is full tuition coverage at ASU, but we're also in our proposal for California is looking at covering some of the tuition at the universities of California, like UC Santa Cruz, UCLA, and other institutions that we think would be beneficial.
Yeah, because that's the catch with the tuition remission, you guys. Like some of those companies, they'll tell you that you get tuition remission, but sometimes it only applies to certain colleges, or you have to pay so much up front and then they reimburse you. And sometimes they don't reimburse you all of it at once. Sometimes it's over a period of months that you get all that money back. So I did just want to put that information out there, because I don't think everyone realizes that. They'll see tuition remission and they get really excited, oh, I can go to college for free if I work for this company. But that's not necessarily the case. You really have to read the fine print.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
So how are you doing now? There was one question for you that Where Pilgrim had. Has there been more difficulty getting the unions formed since Schultz showed up?
I definitely think it's harder, especially after what he said specifically. He said that or I guess he didn't say. He said that they're increasing benefits for non-organizing stores, and then put out paperwork at Starbucks literally saying that if you do not unionize, you're going to get wage increases, which is completely illegal. And the most union busting thing I've ever seen. And it basically is a direct threat against organizing baristas, because that's what we're already fighting for. And a lot of the things that Howard Schultz said that he was going to do and put out at Starbucks, to the partners saying, hey, this is what we're doing, is exactly what the union has been fighting for since day one. So it does make it a little bit harder, but a lot of the baristas don't like Howard Schultz, and they know and see past his lies and his union busting.
Right. No, that's good. I'm curious, what is the hourly wage you're asking for?
It depends. So in California, one of the things we're looking at is actually going to be bumping pay up to $22 an hour. We think that's a living wage, especially in Santa Cruz, where housing costs are astronomical. But of course, that's one thing we're gonna have to negotiate. And it might be for baristas who've been there for a year, they'll get 22, but maybe baristas who are starting out maybe get $20 an hour. It really just depends on how many stores we have to be able to leverage that. And Starbucks is already raising prices, even when union efforts are just getting started. So they're gonna blame that on the baristas who are organizing and try and hurt our movement.
And because minimum wage in California is $15 an hour still, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want people to know, in California, that's nothing. This is same thing here in Massachusetts. $15 an hour here is nothing. So I'm glad that you're fighting for $22 an hour. Everybody needs to be paid a living wage, regardless if you're a barista, if you're part-time, if you're full-time. I'm really glad that this is happening. I'm really proud of you guys. I can't say it enough, because it warms my heart to see younger people getting out there. These are some of the things that my generation, we should have done. When we were working at these businesses as well. And of course we weren't thinking that way. We were kind of taught just to be thankful and happy that we had a job. So yeah, I'm glad that things are changing.
It's insane. But the best thing for me is I'm not the youngest organizer I know. There's actually another 17-year-old up at a Northern California store, Mill Valley, and it's her and 3 other 17-year-olds who are organizing their store. And Like to me, it's so inspiring because when I was 17, I was just working at Starbucks. Of course, I was progressive and like supported Bernie and whatnot. But that thought of like organizing a union 2 years ago would have been so daunting. And now young people are saying, well, we don't care. Like, these young people that I'm seeing are, 13, 12 years old. They're way more of fighters than I was at that age.
I agree. Now, I have noticed that I'm sure you also are aware of what's going on with Amazon and like their union efforts as well. I have noticed Starbucks seems to be really like taking off with unions. Like every other day, I get another notification that another store has unionized, whereas Amazon is not moving as swiftly, right? So the first location in Staten Island, the unionization went through. The second location in Staten Island, it did not pass, and some of that had to do with Amazon sending in corporate types to convince the employees that they don't want to do this. This is actually going to be worse for them. Has anyone from Starbucks, to your knowledge, brought people in to convince the employees that they don't want to unionize?
So that's happened not only in Buffalo that I know about, but it's happened in Arizona. We've had that happen in Santa Cruz when they brought in other district managers from outside of our district to come and talk to baristas. And what's really happening, and what I personally look forward to, is these baristas are knowing that these outside forces are coming in, and they're trusting the people who actually work at their store more than these outside forces. And they're realizing that they can actually build a movement if we work together, build deeper bonds and show that, we're united against, our bosses who are trying to crush us.
Do you know if any of the people that were fired have tried to seek any type of legal representation?
Yeah, so there's been, I think, up to 13 people now that have been fired, which is just insane. And, the NLRB issued a complaint against Starbucks for the Memphis 7 firing. Actually, in our Santa Cruz store, they're also going to be issuing a complaint soon about, discrimination and retaliation at our store as well. It's insane to think that, Starbucks and Amazon and all these other companies that are union busting get away with it for so long because the lack of funding that the NLRB has, and because the way labor laws are currently set up in the United States as well.
Now, can you explain to everyone what the NRB is?
Yeah, so the NLRB is the national agency that is responsible for enforcing labor law. So they're the ones who, look at each lawsuit or look at each petition filed, settle the buttons of, what's actually going to happen with these stores, and really decide, if a store is going to be a single store unit or whatever it is. And, they're the agency that holds Starbucks accountable for their union busting. And as long as they're understaffed, underfunded, and overworked, like the baristas, they're not going to be able to hold Starbucks and Amazon accountable when they do these illegal tactics that are explicitly stated as being illegal.
And where are you located in California? This is Southern California?
It's more like northern. It's like Santa Cruz area, so it's like technically central is what some people call it, but it just depends on where you're at in Northern California.
This is awesome. Again, like Joe, thank you so much for coming on to have this discussion. Again, where can people find you on social media, and where can people support the unionization efforts?
Yeah, of course. So all of my social media is at Joe for Assembly. You can check out our website too. It's joeforassembly.org. I appreciate all you guys' support. You can also go follow the union Instagram as well. The union one is going to be at SBWCA for California. So, yeah.
Awesome. Joe, thanks so much for coming on, and good luck.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye. All right, guys. So happy to see young people out there like just fighting for labor rights, things that like everyone should be doing. But it really like says something to me when I see like people like 19-year-olds, 18-year-olds out there saying, no, we deserve these types of rights too. It really says something. Shout out to AJF for the super chat. Please, leftists and progressives, I implore you to stop using the word free. Use universal or public. The decision we want to chat about is either privately out of pocket paying or collectively funded method. Good point, AJF. Thank you for that. Bill Bradley said, me as well at Sabby Sabs high school debate team was fun. All right, we got the whoop whoop. All right, that is awesome, Bill. I didn't know that. Yeah, I told you guys I was a nerd. Nothing wrong with that. Shout out to Tool Druid for the super chat. There's no money to be made in prevention. The profit motive for the health industry comes from high cost drugs and surgeries. That is true. You're right, Tool Druid. That's a good point. Steven said, progressives, stop calling yourselves anything but socialists and anarchists, LOL. Oh, Steven. All right, guys. Yeah, shout out to Joe Thompson and everyone at Starbucks who's unionizing and trying to like really fight back and push back against Howard Schultz, because Starbucks has a lot of money. You can charge people $5 for a cup of coffee. Come on. You can pay people more. You can give people better benefits. All right. I want to go ahead into the next story. And what can I say? What can I say? Do I want to go to this one next? I think I'm going to end with that one. Let's go to Joe Biden next. Give me just a second. Yeah, for some reason, why can't I click on these tabs? Let's zoom out. Nope. Oh, I got to log back in. Give me just a second, you guys. Ooh, baby, I love your way every day. Who sings that song? Better yet, why is it? Who originally sings that song? Does anyone know in the chat? I'm asking because that question came up this weekend. Let me know. Who originally sings Baby, I Love Your Way? All right, I do want to go into I think I want to do the Joe Biden one first, and then I'll do the Buffalo shooter one last, because I have a lot to say about that. Joe Biden. Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Biden is at it again. He wants to give more money to the police, and this time he's asking the states to do it. Who would have thought? Listen to this. Biden urges cities to spend pandemic relief money on police crime prevention. I can't make this up if I wanted to, guys. Here we go. President Joe Biden on Friday urged states and cities to use unspent money from last year's $1.9 trillion pandemic relief package to fund crime prevention programs and hire police officers. So, I'll go back into the article in just a second, but to make this very clear to everyone, Joe Biden wants people to use the money that was given to the states for pandemic relief, what they have left over, whatever the states have left over, he wants them to use those funds to hire more police. Give it to the police departments. God forbid you use that money towards a greater good, right? Don't use that money to build more affordable housing, which is definitely needed. I talked about that over the weekend. We went to Michelle Wu's event. That was the first question I asked her. What is the plan for affordable housing in Boston? There's no plan. They throw out numbers, but she issued a lot of word salad. Why can't they use that money to help the homeless problem, which is increasing? Why can't they put that money into education? Why isn't Joe Biden telling those states, hey, the money that you have left over, why don't you put that money into the low income, under-resourced schools? Because they don't want them to use those funds for people to actually learn something. They don't want to use those funds for people to actually be housed. They don't want them to use those funds to better people. Joe Biden wants them to use those funds to militarize the police and to keep us all in order. That's what he wants to do. Now, let's go back into the article. The president stressed the need for more funding of public safety programs at a White House event with mayors and law enforcement officials. To every governor, every mayor, every county official, the need is clear. My message is clear. Spend this money now. Use these funds we made available to you. Prioritize public safety. Do it quickly before the summer when crime rates typically surge. So, he's not only telling them to use that money to give more to the police, but he's also telling them to do it very quickly before summer comes when crime rates surge. This seems to be his answer with a lot of issues that we have in this country. We need more police. And I don't see anyone on his administration trying to fix the poverty issue. I don't hear any of them talking about, well, wait a minute. Why is safety more of a concern now? Which I would argue that. Why is crime increasing? Which I would kind of argue that too. Poverty driven. A lot of it is poverty driven. I believe the reason why Joe Biden wants to give the police more money is the same reason why Trump wanted to give them more money and the same reason why Obama wanted to give them more money. I'm going to show you that in just a second. Because he knows what's coming. He knows that the American people have reached a breaking point. This is something that people saw after George Floyd's murder with all the protests across the country, across the world. But now you have a different issue. The economy. People out of work, people unhoused, more people have been evicted. Now you're hitting people in their pockets. People are angry. People are ready to rise up. And I honestly believe that is why they want to give the police more money, because they know what's coming. He wants to make it so that as much as he likes to tout support for what happened with George Floyd, he wants to make it clear. He's going to be sure that nothing like that will ever happen again. And if it does happen again, all of those protests across the country, he wants to make sure that he has enough cops on hand with enough militarized police equipment to subdue it. This is by design. The crime rate is an excuse. Again, I would argue some of these statements about the crime rate increasing. Now, I want to show you something that Jimmy did. Now, Jimmy went live on Saturday, which was interesting. I wasn't expecting that. But there's something that he showed here about how they fund the police. And I want you to pay close attention to this. Again, this is not just under Joe Biden. This is under Obama, Trump, and Biden. Take a quick look at this segment, because there's something he shows here that I don't think a lot of people, what in the world? Sorry. This tight VNC thing, sometimes it gets stuck on my screen and it just, okay. There's something that he shows here that I don't think a lot of people have been paying attention to. But again, this just goes to show you, like I've said before, Democrats and Republicans, they're doing the same thing. Listen to this.
See how much money they spend on cops? Look at it. It keeps going up and up and up from Obama. From Obama, look at all that money. So in 2017, he was spending 1.6. So that's like $2.6 billion on cops. Trump was spending about $3. It keeps going up, up, up. Biden's way more. Look at this. 1.2 plus 2.7. That's 3. That's around, what is that, around 4? I don't know. I can't do math. But there it is. Billions and billions of dollars.
Now I want to pause it there for just a second because I want to read off the year to you. So 2017, Barack Obama increased funding. Here we have, he increased funding by 1.07 billion. 2018, Trump increased funding by 1.14 billion. 2019, increased funding by 1.17 billion. 2020, increased funding by 1.23 billion. 2021, increased funding by 1.32 billion. That's also still Trump. And then we go right here to Joe Biden, increased funding 1.28 billion. If you look at this chart, it's a steady increase. They're continuing to give the police more and more money. And again, this didn't start under Trump. It started, you see, Obama's right here. So what happened under Obama? Ferguson. What happened under Trump? George Floyd. We haven't seen the fullness of this yet under the Biden presidency, but I feel another one's coming. And here we have Joe Biden topping Trump and Biden. Excuse me, Trump and Obama. And the reason why I wanted to show you this is because it goes to show you that at the end of the day, both Democrats and Republicans support the police state. Both Democrats and Republicans are giving billions of dollars to the police. But they don't have money for us. This is all about control. Let's go back into the video.
Throwing at cops. And this is the amount of money that they transferred from the military in equipment to local cops. The big year was Barack Obama right here.
You see that? Now that is right before 2000. That's 2014. The largest amount transfers of military equipment to law enforcement, that was under Barack Obama. So this is important for people to see. Because a lot of times, and I saw this when Trump was president, a lot of people tend to think for whatever reason, this just happens on the right. It's been happening under Democrats too. You just don't hear CNN and MSNBC talk about it as much. They're not showing you this. They may come on and tell you that Joe Biden wants to increase funding to police, wants to fund the police, that is against defunding the police. They'll tell you that. They're not showing you these numbers. If the majority of Americans saw this, they'd probably have a fit that we're giving them this much money. And we can't give American people any tangibles. Nothing. Can't give everybody universal health care. Can't give people free community college. Nothing goes to us. Now, I want to go back for just a second because I want to show you something. Again, if we look at this amount under Joe Biden, so they can give billions and billions to law enforcement, But they couldn't even give us a full $2,000 stimulus check. What? Let's go back in.
Was Barack Obama right here. And they keep doing it. So let's be clear. Adding police is not a crime prevention strategy. It's the same tired approach to advancing public safety through enforcement, imprisonment, and punishment. The outcome's always more Americans of color get locked up and more poor communities are destabilized while crime persists.
You hear that? The crime continues because they're actually not fixing the crime problem because they're not fixing the poverty problem. All they have is that these neighborhoods become more and more over-policed. And it's usually black and brown neighborhoods. This is what we're asking for. This is the treatment we're asking for when we applaud Joe Biden giving the police more money, which a lot of them stood up and applauded that, by the way, during the State of the Union address. In fact, I believe Jimmy mentions that right before this. I want to show you just a second. Yep, sure does. Right here.
Biden said he would do this. He said he would do this, and people stood up and applauded. Watch.
We should all agree the answer is not to defund the police. It's to fund the police. Fund them.
Now, if you notice, who stands up? You have the Democrats.
Fund them.
Right here, sorry.
Hey, but don't be surprised. Even Newsweek knows that Joe Biden said he would do this. He said he would do this, and people stood up and applauded. Watch.
We should all agree the answer is not to defund the police.
Watch Kamala.
It's to fund the police.
We'll see.
Fund them.
Kamala and Nancy stand up and they're Democrats. And then you got Republicans right here standing up and clapping. One corporate party. Now, there's something else I wanted to show you because I want to remind people who Joe Biden really is. Some may have forgotten. I did not. Oh, Eric, I don't think you have that one. I think that's my fault. Some may have forgotten. I didn't. So let me pull this up for you just a second. I have too many links, you guys. I'm sorry. I know I had that link. I guess I have to pull it up. Okay. Sorry, guys. Okay, yeah, this is it. I'm going to pull this up for you in just a second. Is this an ad? No, that's not the one. This is so weird. Eric, did you see another link? I thought I put up that, I think I might have accidentally closed it myself. Let me see. Because I thought I put up. Yeah, I did. Okay, here it is. Okay, it just wasn't in the thing. Okay, so here we go. Let me share my screen. I want to show you, I want to remind you who Joe Biden is. Now, some people don't like me to talk about this. They don't like to be reminded about it. Sorry. I think we need to remember who he is. Now, if you have not seen this before, this was Joe Biden's crime bill speech in the Senate. Joe Biden has not changed. I want to show you.
The consensus is A, we must take back the streets. It doesn't matter whether or not the person that is accosting your son or daughter or my son or daughter, my wife, your husband, my mother, your parents. It doesn't matter whether or not they were deprived as a youth. It doesn't matter or not whether or not they had no background that enabled them to become socialized into the fabric of society. It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my sons. So I don't want to ask what made them do this. They must be taken off the street. That's number one. There's a consensus on that. The Democratic chairman of the Judiciary Committee, the Democratic president of the United States of America, the Democratic attorney general, the Republican leader of this effort, Senator Hatch, the Republican senator from Texas. We all agree on that. Now, we can find some fringe folks in the study groups on the right wing and left wing, libertarians and left-wingers in my party who say, no, that's not what we should do. But politically, that consensus has been arrived at. I acknowledge there was not that consensus in the 60s. There is today. There's a second thing that we all have agreed upon, and that is unless we do something about that cadre of young people, tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock, without parents, without supervision, without any structure, without any conscience developing, because they literally, I yield myself 3 more minutes, because they literally have not been socialized. They literally have not had an opportunity. We should focus on them now, not out of a liberal instinct for love, brother, and humanity, although I think that's a good instinct.
I got it up on Type VNC now. I'm going to chime in between because this is something I want to point out about Joe Biden. And I know people change over time, but I want you to pay close attention to what he says. Pay close attention.
Take back the streets. It doesn't matter whether or not the person that is accosting your son or daughter or my son or daughter, my wife, your husband, my mother, your parents. It doesn't matter whether or not they were deprived as a youth. It doesn't.
Did you hear that? It doesn't matter whether or not they were deprived as a youth. None of that matters. That's not important. That doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter or not whether or not they had no background that enabled them to become socialized into the fabric of society.
But in all reality, those things really do matter. It does matter. It matters the environment that you come from. It matters if you don't have someone there with you at night to tell you to do your homework. It matters if you grow up poor. It matters if you grow up in poverty. It matters if the only time you get to eat is when you get free breakfast and free lunch at school. There are kids that have to deal with that every day in this country. Those things really do matter. So here we have someone like Joe Biden who's supposed to be a Democrat, but here he is issuing like Republican talking points. It doesn't matter if they come from that. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps.
It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my sons.
Notice how he said, it doesn't matter if they've been victims. He said, what matters is if what they're about to do to him. That's what this is really about. And I'm going to get into that Buffalo shooter story in just a second, but I want you to pay close attention to something Joe Biden's saying here. At the end of the day, it's about how he's affected. Everybody catch that? It's about him. I've said this before, I say it again. Police don't really prevent crime. Police don't protect people in poor neighborhoods. Police protect wealthy people. They protect capital. One more time.
Enable them to become socialized into the fabric of society. It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take.
See how he personalized it and made it about him?
On my sons. So I don't.
He said take on his sons. His son Hunter is a criminal. No? Does that same logic apply to his son? Does that same logic apply to Hunter Biden?
I want to ask, what made them do this? They must be taken off the street.
I don't want to ask what made them do this. He doesn't care. He just wants them locked up. He just wants them incarcerated. And if you think that that has changed with Joe Biden, it has not. Joe Biden is still the same. Joe Biden is still pro-cop. He still wants people locked up. And who did the crime bill affect? Predominantly African Americans. He doesn't want them on the street at all. He wants them incarcerated. He doesn't care about their past. He doesn't care about their environment. He doesn't care about the neighborhood that they're coming from. He just wants them gone.
That's number one. There's a consensus on that. The Democratic chairman of the Judiciary Committee, the Democratic president of the United States of America, the Democratic attorney general, the Republican leader of this effort, Senator Hatch, the Republican senator from Texas. We all agree on that.
We all agree on it. The Democrats and the Republicans. They all agreed on it.
Now, we can find some fringe folks in the study groups on the right wing and left wing, libertarians and left-wingers in my party who say, no, that's not what we should do. But politically, that consensus has been arrived at. I acknowledge there was not that consensus in the 60s. There is today.
That was him letting you know right there that all the other groups, the groups he just mentioned, the libertarians, the left wing, he called them the fringe groups. That's how Joe Biden sees the rest of us. That's how he sees members of the squad. That's how he sees any of these progressives that are running for office. He sees them as fringe groups. Nothing, he hasn't changed.
There's a second thing that we all have agreed upon, and that is unless we do something about that cadre of young people, tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock, without parents, without supervision, without any structure, without any conscience developing, because they literally, I yield myself 3 more minutes, because they literally have not been socialized. They literally have not had an opportunity. We should focus on them now, not out of a liberal instinct for love, brother, and humanity, although I think that's a good instinct.
Not out of a liberal instinct. This just goes to show you again, Joe Biden doesn't even consider himself to be a liberal. That's why it's hilarious to me when people say that Joe Biden is a socialist or that they've pushed him so far left. If you listen to this video, and I don't even think this is the entire speech, but if you listen to this video, he was telling you even back then, Joe Biden did not consider himself to be a liberal.
But for simple, pragmatic reasons. If we don't, they will, or a portion of them will, become the predators 15 years from now. And Madam President, we have predators on our streets.
Wasn't he a predator? What? Hello? We have predators on our streets. You have predators in DC. You have predators in the White House. What?
That society has, in fact, in part because of its neglect, created. Again, it does not mean because we created them that we somehow forgive them or do not take them out of society to protect my family and yours from them.
What? Take them out of society to protect my family? You guys hear this? Like, honestly, I haven't heard this speech in a long time, but this speech is very cringe. I can't believe more people did not have problems with this. Listen to this again.
They will, or a portion of them will, become the predators 15 years from now. And Madam President, we have predators on our streets. That society has, in fact, in part because of its neglect, created. Again, it does not mean because we created them that we somehow forgive them or do not take them out of society to protect my family and yours from them.
He didn't even want to forgive them. Just because we created them, that doesn't mean that we forgive them. Guys,
they are beyond the pale, many of those people. Beyond the pale. And it's a sad commentary on society. We have no choice but to take them out of society.
We have no choice but to take them out of society. I believe Joe Biden still feels that way. Still trying to give the police more money, still wants to get more police on the streets. Here's Joe Biden, and I'm sorry, but he's talking about a certain group of people. If you got to think about what was going on at that time, this is 1993. The people that he's talking about, this is primarily Black and brown communities. We have to take them out of society, not try to rehabilitate them, not try to figure out what went wrong, not try to fix the schools, not try to fix the poverty issue. We just need to get rid of them. We got to put them in jail. Then everything will be better.
And the truth is, we don't very well know how to rehabilitate them at that point. That's the sad truth. You're looking.
Did you hear that? We can't rehabilitate them at this point. Did they even try? Did they even try? Where was the amount of support and the public outcry for people in Black and brown communities that were addicted to crack? Where was that public outcry support the same way people give the public outcry to rural white communities that are addicted to meth? Hello. When it came to those communities, we got to go in and rehabilitate. When it came to Black communities that had drug issues, there was no go in and rehabilitate. We got to lock them up and take them out of society. The United States is deeply rooted in white supremacy. It is not just from someone like Joe Biden. It's in the education system. It's in the criminal justice system. It's in the policing system that we have in this country. It's in the healthcare system. Every damn system that we have in this country is deeply rooted in white supremacy. It's in the media. Because the fact that he could stand here and say everything that he just said, and there wasn't more uproar about it, this is a problem. Get off my screen, Joe. Because this is taking me into the next story, which is the Buffalo shooter incident. I want to look at this from a different perspective. I know a lot of people have talked about this, But it's really important. I want you to focus on the core issue. So let's go ahead and go into the story, and I'll chime in here and there. Hochul says Buffalo gunman is not going to see the light of day again. So here we go. This is from The Hill. New York Governor Kathy Hochul on Sunday said the alleged gunman who fatally shot 10 people in Buffalo, New York, one day earlier is not going to see the light of day again. The individual is not going to see the light of day again. You know, whether it's under federal prosecution or state under our domestic terrorism laws or just murder one. This person murdered 10 innocent victims in our community yesterday. Now, that was her on Face the Nation. And here's the rundown. A gunman opened fire at a Tops Friendly Market in Buffalo, New York on Saturday, striking 13 people. 11 of those victims were Black. Authorities are investigating the incident as a hate crime. Police said the gunman, identified as 18-year-old Peyton Gendron of Conklin, New York, who was white, traveled hours to arrive at the supermarket. Traveled hours, you guys, which is located in a predominantly Black area. The shooter was dressed in military gear and broadcast the attack from a helmet camera on Twitch, a live streaming platform. Gendron was arraigned on Saturday night on one count of first-degree murder. A manifesto written by the alleged shooter had reportedly been posted to the online forum 4chan prior to the attack. Hochul told CBS that the state is taking proactive measures to make sure that we're monitoring all social media platforms because this information was out there. This was on a manifesto that was written a while back. We're very concerned about what other information is perpetuated out there on social media platforms and are out there disseminated globally. The governor said the alleged gunman's intent was telegraphed in advance. So I'm calling on social media platforms to be making sure that they're doing a better job monitoring the hate speech that's out there, especially when it's directed against populations and it comes in the guise of white supremacy terrorism, which is exactly what happened here in Buffalo. Let's talk about this manifesto. Now, I've seen a lot of people talk about this on Twitter, different opinions, different thoughts here and there. Some people are blaming Tucker Carlson. I don't know if directly blaming him or whatever, but saying that, you know, he promoted this theory. So this gunman believed in the great replacement ideology. I want to explain to you what that means. So the great replacement theory basically means that there are a group or groups of white people in the United States that believe that they are slowly being replaced by people who are not white, whether it's Black, Latino, Asian, that they will become the minority in this country. To that, I say, and like, I'm sorry, but what's scary and fearful about that? Is there a certain way that minorities are treated in this country that may make you afraid of that? Another issue that's come up about this is people are saying that, well, this is Tucker Carlson's fault because he's been talking about this multiple times, which is true. He has talked about it multiple times. But that being said, I do want people to know, I don't know if everyone has mentioned this, but the great replacement theory actually dates back to the 1800s and actually started with French nationalists. And it started under immigration. Same idea, that you couldn't have immigrants coming in because then the French people would become the minority. Goes all the way back to 1800s. Granted, there was no social media then. Now, I haven't read the entire manifesto. Honestly, I don't want to read all of that stuff. I think it will drive me a little crazy if I went through all of that. But one of the things that was mentioned is what motivated him, right? So some people said Tucker Carlson. Obviously, they mentioned 4chan. And some people have mentioned this, and I want to show you this and tell you what I've found out since then. Now, this is coming from Ryan. So Ryan Knight posted this. He said the Buffalo shooter was inspired by, 1, great replacement theory that Fox News helped spread. 2, the Christchurch shooter who was inspired by neo-Nazi Azov battalion in Ukraine that Biden's funding. When it comes to emboldening fascism, liberals and conservatives are both guilty. Now, I do want to say something because I think Ryan took an approach that most people are not doing. And what I mean by that is Ryan's not just blaming conservatives. He's saying it happens on both sides. And I do have to say this before I go into this excerpt here. I want people to know and to really understand this. Racism is not exclusively on the right. Liberals can be racist too. And if you don't believe me, just come here to Massachusetts. I'll take you to a couple of towns, couple of neighborhoods full of liberals who say that people should date whoever they want, who say that people should be able to identify with whatever they want. But as soon as they see you in their neighborhood and you are not the same complexion, they're the first ones to call the cops. Let's remember, Amy Cooper, the woman who called the police on the bird watcher in Central Park, she was a Hillary Clinton liberal. So just because someone is a liberal does not mean that they are anti-racist. I want to make that very clear. And I wanted you to hear it from me. I want you to hear it from someone who's Black. I've been in both of these settings. I've been in conservative areas down south, and I've been in liberal areas up north. There's overt racism and there's covert racism. Both are still racism. Overt is out there publicly, it's open, it's clear, it's deliberate, it's obvious, not easy to miss. Covert racism, on the other hand, is a little bit tricky. Covert racism can be disguised as something else. I experienced that most in the Northeast, where people will pretend like it's not a racial issue, but it really is a racial issue. They disguise it better. They hide it better. So that I want to get that out there before I go into this excerpt, because I'm seeing a lot of people, some in left media, saying that this is all Tucker Carlson's fault. This is all the right's fault. Look, I'm not here to defend Tucker Carlson. I give zero fucks about Tucker Carlson. I know who he is. I know what he is. Don't watch the show. But I also think, as Ryan pointed out, you also need to point out the fact that there is a type of racism that exists amongst liberals in this country, which has been ignored by other liberals. It is also ignored by people on the left who pretend that if someone is a liberal or they're a leftist, that they are not racist. And that is not true. I've seen it in liberal circles. I've seen it in progressive circles. So let's get this notion out of our heads that racism only exists on the right. Let's go into the excerpt here. Now, this is coming from Ryan. So he posted this. And he's talking about the symbols. So one of the things that came up in reference to the battalion and the shooter. So listen to this. For example, the Azov Battalion is a well-known ultra-nationalist militia organization in Ukraine that openly welcomes neo-Nazis into its ranks. The group is so well-known, in fact, that the 115th Congress of the United States stated in its 2018 omnibus spending bill that none of the funds made available by this act may be used to provide arms, training, or other assistance to the Azov Battalion. Let's go down here. The Christchurch, which was another one that was mentioned, New Zealand massacre was a turning point for counterterrorism efforts. In his manifesto, the shooter claimed he had trained with the Azov battalion in Ukraine, and he routinely wore a neo-Nazi symbol associated with them. So I'm going to say this again. In his manifesto, the shooter claimed he had trained with the Azov battalion in Ukraine, and he routinely wore a neo-Nazi symbol associated with them. Now, to that point, I have no proof of that. This is just what's coming out. I have no proof of that. Do we have pictures or videos to show that he actually did that right now? No. But this is the information that is coming out. Both Poway, California, and El Paso, Texas shooters said they were directly influenced by the terrorism committed at Christchurch. The link between Azov and acts of terror in America is clear. So, some people don't like that Ryan was linking the two. And I'm sorry, but I think that's important for people to see. Now, here's the pictures. The Buffalo shooter, like the Azov-inspired Christchurch shooter, used the same SS Black Sun symbol as the Ukrainian Nazis that Biden is currently sending money and weapons to. Empowering fascists anywhere endangers us all everywhere. So here's the pictures. This is the symbol that they're referring to, this circular symbol over here. So here's a picture of him. You see the circle here. And then if you go to the other pictures, you'll see the symbols here. And here's the Black Sun symbol, which is exactly what he had on here. So let me go to one more picture here. Sorry, this froze for a little bit. I think this thing is freezy. Okay, so and then here's the symbol again here. Now, what some people are saying is that doesn't mean anything. Don't make the connection. Here's another symbol here. If you look closely at the jacket, you'll also see there's a circular symbol there. So now, does that mean that no one else uses that symbol? No, this symbol is actually used by neo-Nazis, not just associated with Ukraine. So that is something I do want to point out. I did not realize that at first, but after doing a little bit more research, I did realize that it's not just Azov in Ukraine that has that symbol. It's used throughout. So again, do we have video or footage that proves, or anyone proving that he was actually there and trained with them? No, we don't. This is the information that I have. That being said, I want to point out the hypocrisy. Because you see, Joe Biden responded to the Buffalo shooting. Biden urges unity to stem racial hate after Buffalo shooting. President Biden urged unity Sunday to address hate that remains a stain on the soul of America after a deadly mass shooting at a supermarket in Buffalo, New York, while state officials pleaded for federal action to end the uniquely American phenomenon of mass shootings. Here's what he said. We must all work together to address the hate that remains a stain on the soul of America. Biden said at the 41st Annual National Peace Officers Memorial Service honoring fallen law enforcement officers. Our hearts are heavy again, but the resolve must never, ever waver. We must all work together to address the hate that remains a stain on the soul of America. And at the same time, his administration is giving billions of dollars to Nazis in Ukraine. Does anyone see the hypocrisy? How can you go to Buffalo and mourn with the people who lost their family members through a hate crime, by the way, and tell them we must work together? This is a stain on our nation. How can you do it when you are sitting up there funding Nazis abroad? How can you condemn what the shooter did when you are funding people abroad doing the same thing? How do people not see this? Why is CNN and MSNBC not calling this out? The hypocrisy of it all. Shame on you. Shame on you. For the people applauding him, I don't understand how you can remain blind. I'll go to some of the comments. I'll come back. C. Larson said Peter Frampton. Yep, that was the song. Captain Obvious said that graph is going to go up next year too. It will keep going up until an actual political revolution happens. I agree. Thank you for the super chat, AJF. Voting based on harm reduction and lesser of two evils is a signal to Democrats that you approve their ideological terms, thus validating their mindset and, of course, telling them that you accept some evil and harm to happen. Yes, AJF. Somebody gets it. Absolutely, 100%. Thank you for the super sticker, Franny French. Thank you so much. You guys see the hypocrisy? Like, it really hit me today because so many people have talked about this story. And I'm like, do they not see the hypocrisy here? President Biden's doing such a good job. He's going to Buffalo to go there with the family members to give his respects, pay his respects. What? Thank you for the super chat, Colin. Sandy Hook should have been all it took for gun reform in this country. Thank you so much for that, Colin. I hear you. I hear you. Gregory says, Sabby Sabs speaking the truth on the blindness of Biden vision. It's just like, I feel like people are just brainwashed. That they can't even see like what's happening right in front of them. Can't even see it. Those Rockfin comments, I can go ahead and take those. And then I'll go back in. Thank you so much for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. A clear example of not having class conscious and placing party over policy is 2016 DNC when Sarah Silverman, a clear Bernie supporter, told Bernie supporters booing everyone that they were being childish. As she spoke in condescending tones, Woo ain't have an answer for you. Joe sound like Biden spitting 90s gangster rap lyrics. I shot this person, hit that person with a lead pipe. I don't care. It's how I feel. This was meant for Starbucks interview. According to the Out of Reach Project Pay, the women wage report that says what the minimum wage needs to be if 30% is supposed to go towards rent for working 40 hours to be able to afford a 2-bedroom apartment is $39.03 for the state, but $68.33 for San Francisco. $58.67 for Sunnyvale, Santa Clara, and San Jose. $58.10 for Santa Cruz, Watsonville, $45.83 for Oakland, Fremont, $45.65 for Santa Maria, Santa Barbara. Go higher. Sab, what you said about him and his generation standing up is what we've said about your generation. Occupy Wall Street. You guys made me say, wow, I didn't know we could do that. We accepted capitalism and figured we must master it. Our generation had a saying, don't hate the player, hate the game. You guys came along and said, right, I will hate the game and change it. Give yourself cred. Hochul forgets hate speech is protected by the First Amendment and has admitted wanting to put heat on big tech to monitor hate speech online. I tell others that she just destroyed her case by saying the quiet part out loud by wanting to censor speech online through proxy New York GOP, who's amping up to protect gun rights. Here say we should look at mental health. New York progressives' response should be New York Health Act covers mental health. We finance hostility through the world at the behest of weapons manufacturers so they can make money. We financed bin Laden for years and he brought us terrorism. I figured this is what would happen, just not so quick. The only solution is nationalization of the weapons manufacturing industry to remove the profit incentive for going to war and instigating conflict. Thank you so much for that. Now, there's something else I want to show you in reference to this story. Oh, I don't need this one. Did I? Hold on. Oh, yeah, it is this one. What I want people to get from this, again, because I'm seeing a lot of blame game going around. Again, I do not defend Tucker Carlson. But what I want people to really understand is that this did not start with Tucker Carlson. Again, if you're just joining, I mentioned this goes all the way back to the 1800s. This country is deeply rooted in white supremacy. As an educator, I see it in the school system. Everything, the curriculum, what you learn, what you're taught, it is never through the lens of Black people, Asian people, Latino people. It is always through the lens of the colonizer. This is what people have to fully get. When you look at the healthcare system in this country, why do we have community clinics in Black and brown neighborhoods that are under-resourced? It's not like that in the white neighborhoods. It's not. That's healthcare. Criminal justice system. You can't even have a white person and a Black person do the same crime in this country, have no priors, and them get the same sentence. The criminal justice system isn't even fair. The policing system. I don't see police cars driving around the blocks in white neighborhoods. They do that in Black neighborhoods, particularly poor Black neighborhoods. The shooter who went into this grocery store and killed all those people, he was taken away in handcuffs. But you have unarmed Black men shot dead. They did the same thing with Dylan Roof. He was taken away in handcuffs. And to understand why they have that reasoning, why police behave the way that they do towards people who are Black versus people who are white, you have to know the history of policing in this country. And the history of policing in this country tells us that policing came from slave patrols, where they were to hunt down slaves and capture them. They're still hunting down Black people. May not necessarily be slaves or shackled slavery, but the concept is still there. Most people in this country, we have not decolonized our minds. We have school systems that don't even want to talk about the civil rights movement. Don't even want to talk about slavery. Don't want to teach kids the truth. Because people feel embarrassed or people may feel guilty. That is one thing different that I did notice living in Germany. When they talked about the Holocaust, when they talked about the way that Jews were treated there, they didn't sugarcoat it for us. They didn't hide it. They didn't protect it. They told us what happened. They said this was wrong, and this is what we have learned from it. And here is how we move forward. And that came from a German history teacher. We don't do that here. How have we really moved on? Did we really? What did we learn from it? What did we learn from it? Because after slavery, years later, you had Jim Crow. So you still have that concept, that notion in this country that Black people are less than. And as long as you have that ideology, as long as you have that concept in your mind, you will never fully get it. So I'm telling all of you tonight, you have to decolonize your mind. We weren't taught how to do it. But hopefully, by watching people like me, by watching people like all of us over at Revolutionary Blackout Network, hopefully we are teaching you how to do that. But here's what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to sit here and point to one person as the reason why the shooter did what he did. It's not a one person problem. It's the fucking system that we live in. I don't want you to leave tonight without remembering the victims. Now, this is from Afeni. I have no words for this. We are going back in time. People need to wake up. This shit has to change. Black people are getting lynched out here. I am keeping the families of these people in my mind. If anyone knows how we can support them, DM me. Here are the victims.
Y'all, they have identified 8 out of 10 of the victims of the shooting that took place in Buffalo, New York at the Tops supermarket. This is Ruth Whitfield, who was 86. Her son, the former Buffalo Fire Commissioner, said she was on her way from visiting her husband in a nursing home and had stopped at the store to get something to eat. This is Aaron Salter Jr., who was identified by his son, Aaron Salter III, as the beloved Tops Friendly Market security guard and former Buffalo cop who tried to stop the shooter. Salter, who joined the Buffalo Police Department right out of high school, leaves behind 3 children. This is Pearl Young, who was 77, a mother, a grandmother, and a key member of her church. For 25 years, she fed those in need in the city's Central Park neighborhood. This is Roberta Drury, who was 32, from Syracuse. She was in Buffalo spending time with family and to help her brother recover from a bone marrow transplant. She leaves behind 3 siblings and her parents. This is Celestine Cheney, who was 65, a breast cancer survivor with 7 grandkids. This is Hayward Patterson, a deacon at his church, who would frequently give people rides to and from the Tops supermarket and help them carry their groceries. This is Andre McNeil, a beloved father, brother, uncle, and friend. According to his brother, he was at Tops supermarket to buy a birthday cake for his son who just turned 3. And this is Catherine Cat Macy, who was 72 and an advocate for civil rights and education in her community. Massey had gone to Tops to do some grocery shopping. Cat wrote for both the Buffalo Challenger and Buffalo Criterion. A year ago, she wrote in support of more federal regulation of firearms. The gun violence, the mass shootings, the hate crimes, the racism, it needs to be addressed in our nation. Y'all,
what I want everyone to realize is that what happened to the victims, and those aren't all of them, there's more of them now, but that was the video that was sent to me. What happened to them could have happened to any one of us. Could have been just one of those times you went to the supermarket just to grab a couple of items and didn't leave with your life. Could have been any one of us. For people like Joe Biden, his response would be, we need more police. But I have a question. Did police prevent this event from happening? No. Because police don't prevent crime. Could have been any one of us. I never thought I'd live in a world where it's not safe to go to the grocery store, can't ride your bike. And this isn't the only incident. There was another one in Laguna Woods, California, also over the weekend. Justin Cooper said, my son just turned 7 days ago after the murders of the innocent Black victims. He turned to me and asked me, what's wrong with people? I couldn't give an answer other than we live in a sick society. Swanky Tia said, damn, this is just terrifying. It's awful. It's awful. But nothing ever changes. We live in a violent country. How many times every year you have to hear about these mass shootings? If it's not a school, it's a church, grocery store. Violent country. When I mentioned that I don't want to blame this on one person, I want to say this again to be very clear. That is not me defending Tucker Carlson. Like I said, I give zero fucks about the dude. The problem is I really want people to pay attention to the systemic issue. And I want people to realize that if you think it's just conservatives that listen to Tucker Carlson, you are wrong. He knows who his audience is. A lot of the people that watch him already have those beliefs. Not all, but some of them do. They already had those beliefs. What I've noticed is that the way that this has been covered by some people in left independent media is they wanted to make it a left-right issue instead of focusing on the white supremacy issue. The systemic problems that we have in this country that allow something like this to happen. The fact that we have not decolonized our minds. Yes, there's been improvements over time, but I still remember as a kid going to the toy store and only seeing one Black baby doll, one Black Barbie doll. All the other dolls were white. I remember in high school seeing all the women on the cover of the magazines, rarely seeing a Black person on the cover of the magazines. So the change is going to have to come from within us. Because the reality is, if people think that Tucker Carlson is just going to change what he talks about tomorrow, he's not. This isn't the first time pressure's been put on him about things that he say on his show. Fox News knows what they're doing. He knows what he's doing. It's going to be on us to educate people about the truth, not him. So again, what I want people to take from this is, for the love of God, again, if you think it's just conservatives that are racist, you are wrong. Liberals are racist too. Not all of them, but some of them. That's why I said when it comes to this particular issue, you need to take politics out of it for a second and focus on the white supremacy issue. And for the people who are just talking about this from a right perspective, just saying, oh, this is conservatives, this is what they do, you obviously don't know. And those of us who are Black, we do know, especially those of us who are Black that lived in some of these liberal communities. We'll be the first to tell you they're racist too. So I wish that's something that we could do more. Look at the overall issue instead of just the left-right game. Thank you for the super chat. Smash the hype no spear. Thank you for that, Salgado. Thank you for the super sticker, MPLS. JB says they think black skin is more dangerous than a mass shooter, SMH. Tristan, thank you for the super chat. Unrestrained capitalism, as practiced by this imperial global system, is inherently destructive as profit is all. Power is profit. Life is expendable. Money. Well said, Tristan. Thank you so much for that. I think I have one more on Rockfin, and then I'll head on out. Thank you for this, Roger Meadows. Ballot Initiatives, me and Kira from HLM been covering Sundays, noon Eastern time, have come across a number of BIs that ban CRT, saying there can be serious repercussions for teachers who teach subjects that make students feel bad or ashamed. These people never thought that onion cuts both ways. If I had a child, I would stop them from teaching Columbus and the founding fathers who were slaveholders, plunderers, rapists, murderers. Well said, Roger. Well said. All right, guys, I do have an exciting week. I'll be back tomorrow with more news. Wednesday, Jill Stein will be here. Friday, Whole Washington will be here. They're going to talk about collecting signatures. They finally did get a ballot initiative number. They're trying to get everyone universal health care in Washington state. So it's going to be a pretty jam-packed week. Ride with me. We'll have some fun. Again, guys, stay safe. Take care of each other. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.